Dyscourse is a game that surprised me a whole lot. Initially, I was surprised because I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it when I got started. The idea of a narrative-focused plane crash survival game excited me. Based on the game's trailer and the little bit that I had read about the game, I leapt right into it, and upon entering the game, I realized it was rather different from what I was expecting. So I got started thinking that the game would be, well, lame. After playing through the game once, I liked it for what it was, and after subsequent playthroughs, I really came to appreciate Dyscourse. So, what is Dyscourse? Simply put, it's a game in which you're a woman named Rita, and your plane is crashed on a deserted island. You're surrounded by a group of eccentric survivors who you must keep alive until you're all rescued. It plays a lot more like a choose-your-own-adventure book than a traditional adventure game, with some very simple platformer elements and some very nice aesthetics. While the game may, on first glance, seem short, it's really meant to be played multiple times. To start with, Dyscourse is aesthetically fantastic. I love the game's visual style. I'm honestly not sure how to describe it. The characters look like paper dolls in a 2D diorama of sorts. It's cute, and it nicely subverts the game's sometimes dark story. The way the characters are animated is also pretty good. They seem to have a few joints in just the right places. I have no complaints about the way that Dyscourse looks. Gameplay in Dyscourse is very simple. You walk around, interact with objects, and talk to people, making decisions through the dialogue. As mentioned before, Dyscourse really plays like a CYOA. The most important parts of the game aren't really about where you walk or how quickly you can pick up objects. Rather, it's about what you decide to do with them. There are a few decisions with timers attached, but that's about as intense as the decision-making gets. Dyscourse's gameplay is quite closely tied to the story. You need to pay careful attention to the story in between playthroughs in order to rescue more folks on subsequent playthroughs of the game. Dyscourse isn't a game that you're supposed to play just once. Rather, it's meant for multiple playthroughs. Each playthrough, start to finish, is rather brief, about a half hour, but because there are so many possibilities in each playthrough, you'll find yourself going back again and again to see what you could have done differently. For instance, in your first playthrough, you might decide to search for water on one day, and then check out the plane wreck on the next day, but if you flip the days around on your next playthrough, you might find that things didn't quite go as they did during your first time playing the game. Consequences in Dyscourse really feel like consequences, which is very important to the game. You might choose to forego comfort and sleep in the cold in order to pay a kindness to a fellow passenger, but it may come at the cost of frostbite. Will you risk life and limb in order to make somebody like you a little bit more? Keeping up morale plays a pretty big part in the game. On that subject, the characters in Dyscourse are diverse and interesting. There's the depressed fellow who's always smoking, a guy who's obsessed with video games, a couple who's steadily drifting apart, and a conspiracy theorist named Teddy. In my head, I find that I've been calling him Piggy for some reason. At the start of the game, I didn't like the characters at all. The first impression I got of each of them was that they were all shallow stereotypes. This turned out to be very wrong. Each character is quite well fleshed out, with fears, personality, flaws, and experiences that give them depth. Each relates to the other in their own ways, and it's up to you to keep them working together. For such a fast-paced choose-your-own-adventure, Dyscourse has a lot of little moments for character development, which have been a big help to making me like the game. In addition to the main game, there's also the Indie Island bit of DLC that puts you in the shoes of an indie developer on her way to a conference. Along the way, you'll encounter a slightly insane Tim Schafer, who's building a helicopter out of scraps and is threatening to leave without rescuing anybody. I really feel that this DLC is quite weak. While it is free bonus content, which is nice, it's not really funny, interesting, or engaging. I suppose the humor is objective, but in my opinion, the comedy of Indie Island wasn't nearly as good as that of the main game. The character development wasn't there, and a lot of the emotional beats that make the rest of the game work seemed absent in the Indie Island DLC. The comedy of the Indie Island DLC doesn't go much further than a few puns, gags, and references to the works of the developers within. For example, Rami Ismail is fishing ridiculously, and Adam Saltzman, the developer of Cannibals, can run. You might not find the Indie Island DLC quite as enjoyable as the rest of the game, but it is totally free, and if you own Dyscourse, it's worth going through at least once. Overall, Dyscourse is a really neat game with good writing and interesting characters. While there isn't a lot to the gameplay itself, that which is there is totally solid. If you've been looking for an adventure game that eschews complex puzzles in favor of dialogue-oriented interaction, you'll want to check out Dyscourse. Well, that's all I have to say about the game. What do you think? Hit us up and follow at Blackman and Robin on Twitter for more game news, interviews, previews, and reviews. Follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my other views.
I'll